How you doing, everybody? We've been looking at the 5 P's in the book called Do Something. The first P of Jesus' life was preparation, that we have all been prepared to do something great, just as Christ was prepared. The second P is purpose, and our purpose is very simple. It's just the same as Jesus' purpose, to obey the Father. The greatest commandment is to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul. To love God means to obey God. So we're going to talk about purpose. What's our purpose? One of my favorite places to minister is a prison. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to prison, whether you've been incarcerated or you went to visit. But if you've never been to a prison, I want to encourage you to go do ministry in prison, because it's an incredible place. One of the reasons I like is because you don't have to spend a long time convincing people they're sinners. You know, you say all have sinned, and everybody says amen because they know. But when you go to prison, and especially in the United States, it's a very segregated place. You have all the blacks usually together, the Hispanics, the whites, the others, the islanders, and there's a lot of gangs in prison. It's a very scary, intimidating place. But there's a woman who I know, my former secretary, Beverly. She's a 50-something-year-old lady, and she's about this tall, little white lady, and she goes into prison. I remember her telling me the story of her first time, and she's walking into the prison with the prison ministry. And she's been through a divorce, she's been through some hard times with her family and health, and so she went in to minister to the guys about their marriages. So she's walking through the yard and she can feel everybody looking at her. She's scared. Was someone going to yell at her? What's she going to say? What's she going to do? Not much, but she's just very concerned. She walks through the yard and she gets into the chapel, and in the chapel there's about 60 guys, all tatted up, gang members, black, Hispanic, white, and she has no idea how she's going to do it. She got knots in her stomach, and she can feel this guy standing behind her. She turns around and there's this big gang member, braids, black guy, green eyes, and he's in her face, leaning down, looking at her, and says, "What gives you the right to come in here and talk to us? What qualifications do you have?" Her heart was in her throat, and she was just, I don't know, I think God just called me to be here. Well, that set the tone for her talk. She hadn't talked yet. She gets up in front of the crowd, and God opens her eyes. And he opens her eyes, and she looks around the room, and she sees all these guys who are hurting just like her. All of a sudden, they weren't gang members, murderers, drug dealers. They were hurting men. When Jesus was walking through the town, he went to a city called Nain, and he saw a woman who was mourning the death of her son. There were crowds walking down the street with the woman's son in a casket. And the Lord looked through the whole crowd and saw the woman and saw the pain in the woman, and he had compassion for her. If you are going to obey God, which is your purpose, God is going to have to open your eyes to see people the way he sees people. As soon as Beverly saw those inmates, not as thugs, not as a threat, but broken hearts, guys that Jesus loved, guys that God wanted to encourage, guys that had been through and were going through the same thing she was going through with her husband, broken marriages. As soon as she saw them that way, she was qualified to love them. She was qualified to encourage them. My encouragement to you is to ask God to open the eyes of your heart, that you may see the people in your life the way he sees them, that you don't judge them with your bias, but that you would ask God to open the eyes of your heart, that you may see their pain, their struggle, their spiritual need, and that God would encourage you to love them as he loves them. So that's my encouragement to you. If you're going to do something for God, you got to be obedient to God. And to be obedient, you have to see people the way he sees people, so you can love them the way he loves them. So God bless you, and remember, go do something.